Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Jellybeans, and I'm going to be doing my very first guide to marksmanship hunter PvP in Shadowlands. That's going to be released in 1 week. I've been getting a lot of questions in my streams and comments lately on my YouTube about on what spec, what covenant, stat priority, enchant, etc. for hunter. So those are all going to be all the things I'm going to be going over in this video. If you guys have any questions about anything else, you're more than welcome to ask in the comments. You're also more than welcome to follow my Twitter at Jellybeans TV. My DMs are open. You can ask me any questions you guys want about Hunter. But yeah, if you guys need any help with anything, just let me know. And let's begin. First thing I'm going to go over is actually talents. So in my opinion, in the very first talent tree, the level 15 tree, I think Master Marksman is by far the best of the three. Just because it does 15% of the damage you deal passively without having to use any focus, because Serpent Sting, not really too great in terms of PvP and your rotation. And Crows is the burstiest of the three, but I would still say not worth compared to Master Marksman. It's just a waste of a global. You can use your global on something else, like throwing an arcane shot out, maybe steady shotting to get focus back. Plus it doesn't do that much damage for how much focus it costs too. So then the second tree, the level 25 tree, I'd say careful aim. It says 50%, but it's actually only 20% in PvP. It gives you 20% bonus damage on your aim shot when you hit something above 70% HP. So I would say this is better in a short game, which is going to be majority of Shadowlands game because the pacing is very fast. But in terms of like if games go decently long, so like if you were to fight like, especially plate classes that take less damage from your physical damage, like aim shot, steady shot, spells like that, I would go with explosive shot. You never take barrage in arena in PvP. I'll go with explosive shot, which does magic damage. Does about 3,000 roughly around that area. Every 30 seconds for 20 focus, which is it's definitely very bursty, definitely a lot of damage, and it cleaves too. So like if the targets are stacking, if you're finding like double melee, like plate melee, it'll hit them both at the same time. So it's pretty good. And in the next talent row, I would potentially never go Trailblazer in PvP. Because it's just the 30% movement speed is nice, but as soon as you get hit, which is going to be the majority of the game, because you're a hunter, and hunters are generally very squishy targets, like targets that are sought after in almost every single arena match. You'll be targeted, I'd say, at least once throughout the entire game. This doesn't stay up for too long. Natural Mending is good for long games, but in all honesty, Shadowlands, like I said, the pacing is very fast. So I generally would go to Camouflage too. For the next talent tree, the level 35 tree, Steady Focus will give you haste if you steady shot twice in a row. I'd say that's pretty useless compared to Streamline. Streamline just increases the damage of your rapid fire, which you use basically almost off cooldown in PvP. Because it generates focus and it costs no focus, so it's just free damage that you can also do through a pillar, and you can do it while moving. So this is just 15% damage on one of your spells that you're using throughout the entire game, and it also decreases the cast time of your next aim shot, which is pretty insane by 30%. So Chimera shot was the best of the three for a while, but one of the hunter legendaries, which I'll also go over, actually got nerfed that made Chimera shot hit roughly around like 8 or 9 times. Yeah, so this got nerfed pretty badly. So I would say like almost every single game goes Streamline, and maybe against like double melee go Chimera shot, because it does cleave damage. So yeah, and then the next talent tree, the level 40 tree, I'd say never go Born to be Wild. Post haste is generally the one you want to go with. Anytime you disengage, you remove all slows and roots on yourself, and also get a sprint of 50% movement speed bonus for 4 seconds. That's pretty insane just to play. If you want to like kite and run away, it's really good for that. And it's also good to like reposition or run on top of people and like be super aggressive. So it functions as both an offensive and defensive talent. So definitely really good. As opposed to Binding Shackles, which is just defensive. This decreases damage people deal after 8 seconds of being binding shotted by 20%. So this I could see being useful if, let's say, targets were not going you. They were like tunneling your healer or like trying to kill your teammate. But even then, I feel like this would be pretty useless compared to post haste. Just because post haste also like it allows you to play aggressively on top of teams. So like if you had to run at someone to land a trap or like try to get a kill, it allows you to just like continue chasing after him and being hyper aggressive. So I feel like this talent I would say like 95% of games will always be better. So the level 45 tree, I'd say lethal shots is never worth it, or Deadeye. Deadeye seems like it would be worth it. It gives 2 kill shot charges and causes your next aim shot to recharge 60% faster for 3 seconds. But a double tap is actually just the best talent by far. Just because it's a 1 minute cooldown, it's controlled burst. It makes your next aim shot or rapid fire do double damage, which is pretty insane without costing focus. Another thing, it modifies your next talent, which I'm going to show you guys right now, which is the level 50 tree. So I would never take these two. Calling shots basically reduces the cooldown of your true shot every time you're arcane shot or multi shot. The games are too fast to rely on true shot only for burst, like I said before. And volley is AoE damage, which, you know, there's only 3 targets in PvP. You generally just want to do burst damage as a hunter, because your goal, your objective is to land a trap on whatever off target, whether it's a healer or a DPS, and burst one target down. So lock and load is generally the best. One thing I also was saying was, for all the hunter players out there, there's actually a trick with double tap. It's a little more advanced, but it's like if you get a lock and load proc, which is your auto shots have an 8% chance to cause your next aim shot to be instant and cause no focus. So if you actually get this proc and you press double tap, you can actually modify your rapid fire and your double tap at the same time, as long as you cast that instant aim shot before your rapid fire ends, which is something that's pretty interesting because that's basically modifying 2 spells in 1 burst go, which is huge. It's a ridiculous amount of burst. You can basically kill someone in 1 trap by that happening. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to go over is stat priority. So I've tested Verse Mastery and Verse Haste, which I think are the 2 best. Verse being the best stat by far. Versatility, what it does is increases the damage you deal and healing, and it decreases the damage taken. I think as a hunter, it's very important, because even if for some reason it doesn't scale more in terms of DPS compared to Mastery, Haste, or Crit, the damage reduction is insane for hunter, because like I said before, hunters are very squishy targets. Generally the main target in PvP, especially 3v3 arenas, you will be one of the main targets. Like, people will go after you most games, so versatility is pretty insane. In terms of burst, I say Verse and Mastery together offer you more burst potential. But in terms of like quick gameplay, having more windows for kills, getting more aim shots off throughout the game, globals being shorter, I would go with Verse Haste, which is my personal preference. But yeah, I personally think Verse Haste is better. I even go with the Verse Enchants, as you can see on my rings. And I use the Infragreen Reflex Sight, which is a scope that increases your haste on your weapon by 303 when it procs for 12 seconds. So I think those are the best. I also use a Stamina Cloak Enchant. These are pretty much the stats I think are the best. So let's move on to Legendaries. The Legendaries I've tested, there are lots of them, but the ones I prefer and I recommend would be the Neck or the Wrist, which gives you surging shots. It increases the damage of your rapid fire by 25%, and also your aim shot has a 15% chance to reset the cooldown of rapid fire. So this is a decent one. I don't really use it often. It's solid. It's definitely not bad. It's very consistent, if anything. The other damage one I find consistent, Serpent Stalker's Trickery. What this does is cause your aim shot to also apply Serpent Sting. So you basically have Serpent Sting up for a lot of the game as long as your aim shot consistently, which is on the shoulders and fingers. And the only other legendary I would recommend using as marksmanship would be this one. So this actually replaces survival tactics, which is a PvP talent I'm going to go over after this. So it reduces the cooldown of your feigned death by 15 seconds, but also removes most negative status effects from yourself. So by most negative status effects, I know it's not very specific, but it'll remove like poison, magic, debuffs, curses, like just majority of things that like survival tactics wouldn't remove, because survival tactics is a PvP talent that removes magic debuffs and reduces the damage you take by 99%. But this instead would be taking the place of that, which is insane, because that means that now that third PvP talent slot that you always had to take survival tactics for whenever you fought certain matchups, you could actually just use a legendary to take the place. That's pretty insane. Every other legendary, from what I've tested so far in the beta, did not seem worth it. So yeah, those are the 3 I would recommend for sure. If you are not playing human, you basically will always have this trinket on. And this basically replaces the Honorable Medallion from Battle for Azeroth. So this just removes any crowd control on a 2-minute cooldown. You're always going to have this unless you're human. Human being the best alliance race, and orc being the best horde race. I know it's a little misleading because I'm running around as a troll hunter right now, but orc is by far better than troll. I just play troll because I like the way they look. Kind of weird, I guess. Okay, so next, I'm going to go over Covenant abilities. In terms of Covenant abilities right now, I would say Kyrian is by far the best Covenant for Marksman. So the way Kyrian works is you have two spells. You have this, Summon Sword, which all this does is summon an owl, right, who will bring you these pots. They're called Vials of Serenity. They're right here. So what these do are they heal you for 20% of your health. It removes diseases, poisons, curses, and bleeds affecting you. And you can use it all 3 times throughout the game. You just have to remember that every time you use one, you have to try to leave combat in order to use the next one. Because if you don't leave combat, then the cooldown won't reset, and you'll only be able to use it once throughout the game. So that's the very first spell you get, which is pretty solid, I'd say. I think I use it like every single arena. There isn't a time where it's like not useful because if you get low in HP, you use it. So whether you have poisons, bleeds, or anything on you or not, it still heals you. And the second ability is where like this covenant is basically by far the best in my opinion for marksmanship right now. It's called Resonating Arrow, and what it does is it does a little damage, which doesn't really matter, but it allows you to ignore line of sight and increases your critical strike chance against the targets that are in this circle, which is a 43-yard range, by 30%. And it's on a 1-minute cooldown. So the way it works is like this. So like there's a radius, right? A circle, like your freezing trap. And it's a pretty big circle, as you can see. And normally, right? I'll show you guys. Normally, if I were to go down here, right? I cannot hit this training dummy. It's out of my line of sight. There's a giant wall between us. There's no way I can hit it, right? Now, if I use this Covenant ability, if I use Resonating Arrow, if I drop that, jump down, now I can shoot through a wall. As long as this buff is up. As long as the arrow is down still. So, as you can see, that's a pretty strong ability so far. By far the best from marksmanship specifically. I think that alone makes this Covenant the best. I would say, I don't think I'm going to go it. It's up to you guys if you want to or not, because I think it may or may not get changed or nerfed. Even if it doesn't get nerfed, I really like Venthyr. So what Venthyr gives is, Venthyr is the second Covenant. They have a teleport. It's called Door of Shadows, and it's a little circle that looks like this, right? And wherever you click, after a few seconds, you teleport to that area. So that's the first spell, and the second one is called Flayed Shot. It puts up a dot, and every time the dot does damage, the damage over time effect does damage, it has a chance to reset your kill shot and make it cost no focus. Basically, you're just getting free kill shots throughout the game. I feel like that one is like, not only is it the most fun one because of the teleport, but on a consistent level, it's solid. It's not bad at all. The third Covenant is called Necrolord. You get a spell called Fleshcraft, where if you stand still, you channel and create a shield over time. And I mean, that spell not too fun, but on a consistent level, pretty good. And then the second spell you get from that one is called Death Chakrams, and it throws chakrams at your target that bounce between targets, and it can also bounce between one target if the target's sitting by itself. It does pretty good damage on a 45-second cooldown. I would say that Covenant is also pretty solid, but not as fun because you don't have to teleport. The last one is Night Fae. I do not recommend going Night Fae. Please don't go Night Fae if you're watching my guide. That, as of right now on the beta, is pretty terrible. It might change, it might get buffed, but as of right now, a week before release, it's pretty awful. So I definitely would just like give it some time, try to feel it out, and see which one like matches your playstyle the most and which one you want to do. I'm gonna go with Venthyr, but yeah. Okay, so PvP talents. I would say for starters, I would never switch Scattershot as Marksman. So Scattershot basically is a 21-yard range shot that CCs or incapacitates your target for 4 seconds. It shares a diminishing return with Freezing Trap, What that means is that whenever you freezing trap and then you scatter shot, or you scatter shot and then you freezing trap, it'll reduce the duration of the other by half. So if I were to scatter shot something and incapacitate it for 4 seconds and then try to freezing trap it, my freezing trap instead of 8 seconds will only be 4. That may seem like a cripple, and a big one, possibly a big enough reason to not take scatter. But the reason why scatter shot is so good is because A, you can interrupt someone, so you can use it as an interrupt, or B, you could just use it on a target that isn't the target you're trying to freezing trap. So like if you're playing 2v2 or 3v3 arenas, it's still extra crowd control you could do on a target that isn't necessarily the one you're trying to crowd control or freezing trap. So basically you could like have multiple targets crowd controlled at once. Roar of Sacrifice basically makes it to where your pet takes 20% of the damage during this 12-second duration of this buff, but you can't be critically striked. This is pretty good against majority of classes, because majority of classes, especially during their burst, rely on critical strikes to do a lot of damage. So if you press Roar of Sacrifice, you mitigate how much damage you're going to take. I would say Dragon Scale Armor is pretty good against damage over time classes, so I would use this against Warlocks and Shadowbeans a lot of the games. Survival Tactics, like I said before, there is the chess piece now, which I will show you guys again. The chess piece replaces survival tactics. You basically are able to remove majority of debuffs on you with this chess piece, so you don't really need survival tactics anymore. The one reason why I would ever take this would be like against a Ret Paladin. They have a spell tech, a bomb, like a time bomb. So after like the very end of the duration of that spell, if you press Feign Death with this, you negate the damage by 90%. Other than that, I probably would never take this now, because we have the legendary. Viper Sting, I won't even read it because I don't ever take this. Or Scorpion Sting, I don't take. Spider Sting is a blanket silence, which basically means it silences you for 4 seconds. It's a debuff if someone casts an offensive spell. I would take this, but it's very rare because you usually want some variation of Roar of Sacrifice and Dragon Scale Armor. If you're fighting a wizard, Spider Sting could be useful if you're trying to get like cross crowd control, which means that you're trying to like control multiple targets at once. I would take that in my third tree. So like the baseline spells, you always have Scatter Shot, and then you have Roar of Sacrifice or Dragon Scale, depending on what you fight. And usually it's like if you're using one, you're most likely not using the other, because if you're fighting a class that can't critically strike, it's probably a dot class. Like it's a dot class, you'll use Dragon Skill Armor, and vice versa. Like if you're fighting a class that's bursty, it's generally not a damage over time class. It's generally a very bursty, like one-shot class, and I use Roar of Sacrifice. There might be like certain comps in Shadowlands that have both, and then at that point you just, in this third row, you just take both, like this. So then there's High Explosive Trap, which is on a 45-second cooldown. It basically just throws a trap like your freezing trap that knocks people away. It's on a 40-second cooldown. This is pretty useful against like if you're fighting melee teams and you're trying to kite them and like run away. It's very helpful to have this because you also have a spell called Bursting Shot, which knocks people away too. So it helps just like constantly keep people away, because as a hunter, your biggest weakness is being a squishy target. Like I said before, like you die easily. So like if you're not reacting and you're not like using stuff to get away from people, if something stays on you for too long, you fall over pretty fast. The rest of the talents I would not recommend in 3v3 arenas. Like everything else is not as useful as those spells, PvP talents I just named, because those are so strong compared to the rest. I wouldn't even recommend using any of the other ones in PvP, at least in arenas. I can then go over a couple of the Covenant followers. So, in my opinion, these aren't unlocked because I'm on beta, but in my opinion, this one's great for dueling. I'm not going to read the ones that don't really matter much, but I'm going to read this one. So this one, you hit 35% HP, you stun everything around you for 3 seconds, and it's on a 45-second cooldown. It's great for dueling, especially if you're dueling rogues or like a melee class, because then if you get low, you stun them, right? But in terms of actual arenas, I probably would always use this follower. Pelagos, what she gives is whenever you resonating arrow, you actually get 350 mastery, which is basically just base damage on all of your spells. So that's pretty insane. And then the tree I would go down would be the right tree. So you get Phial of Serenity buff. This makes these potions that owl gave you I was talking about earlier. It makes it do 35% more healing, but it becomes like a healing over time effect over 10 seconds. So yeah, I feel like these two alone like make this talent tree in terms of PvP arenas, like 3v3, so much better. So I would definitely go with Pelagos. And go with Kyrian if you want to play like what's OP currently. I predict that Kyrian will end up not being too strong later on. So I'm not going to go with Kyrian, but even if it does end up being the strongest, I think Venthyr is still like a pretty close runner-up. Okay, so in terms of doing damage and burst, it's a pretty simple concept. I'm going to try to explain it as best as I can. So a lot of hunters you see the burst you'll double tap to buff your aim shot, right? It'll make your aim shot hit twice. So your very first aim shot, you want to double tap. Majority of games, you want to burst target down after you land some kind of crowd control on the second target or the healer. A problem I see most hunters do is they'll press every button they have. So like, let's say, I have resonating arrow, which will give me 30% critical strike, double tap, which will double my aim shot, true shot, which will make my aim shot go even faster. It'll make you cast aim shot 50% faster, actually. Berserking is because I'm troll. Okay, so a lot of hunters will press double tap with true shot in their burst all the time. Like in the very beginning of the game, they just press both at the same time, just like start mashing aim shot. You actually want to wait to press this. The only time you should press this is if like you're in a situation where like you feel like you're not going to get the aim shot off if you don't press this with it. And the reason why is because you open in camouflage, it stealths you for 1 minute. So basically no one can see you, right? So the difference between me like true shotting and aim shotting right now, and then me casting a normal aim shot like AM, like this, there is no difference. If I cast a fast aim shot or if I cast a slow aim shot, if this aim shot took 10 seconds to cast, by the end of the day, nobody can see me casting it. Like, the enemy can't see me casting this spell. So if the enemy can't see me casting this spell, it doesn't matter how fast I cast it, right? So if you use True Shot right now with your double tap, it doesn't matter because you're wasting those... It may be only 2 seconds, but you're wasting those seconds casting True Shot and like wasting the cooldown of it. So like if I were to True Shot right now, there will only be 13 seconds left by the time I get that aim shot off of my True Shot. You want to save it. So like you want to double tap like this and then aim shot. And then use your Arcane Shot charges, because when you aim shot you get Arcane Shot charges. And then you want to True Shot. And that way you get some more value out of your True Shot. Because it's all about having more value in your damage, right? So like that's something that's really big. So that's the opener. You really want to think about these things because like all of these little things may not seem like a big deal, and it might seem like I see every other hunter do it, I'm just gonna do it too. But like all these small things will make a big difference in like the thousands of games you'll play and like how many games you win because of like the very little things. So rotation in general is if you're at 2 charges of aim shot full focus like I am right now, you want to start off aim shotting, of course, if like there's nothing going on, you're just PvEing. You aim shot and use as many Arcane Shot charges as you can. So like let's say I have 2 right now, I'd use 2. And you never want to wait until you're super low focus to start using rapid fire. Because rapid fire will give you focus for each shot you get off. Out of 7 shots, so it'll give you 7 focus, right? Generally speaking, in my opener, I'll aim shot. And then I'll use my Arcane Shot charges, so I have 2. And then I'll rapid fire. And then I'll aim shot again. And the reason why is because you want to put your rapid fire on the cooldown as fast as you can. Because you want it to be back up in order to generate your focus again, and because it's free of cost. So it's like you're min-maxing your damage in PvP. A cool thing about rapid fire is that, before I was talking about how you can't shoot through walls, right? Like I wouldn't be able to shoot through like this or anything. Okay, so you can't rapid fire through walls either. Not initially, not the very first spell. But you could rapid fire and then run around the wall, and it will still keep shooting like this. So that's something that's interesting. One thing you'll see me do a lot on my stream, or just in videos or in PvP, is that I like to play at pillars. So I like to play where there's some kind of line of sight where like, if something goes wrong, I know I could instantly just duck away to a pillar. I know I don't have to be, like, a lot of hunters, the biggest mistake they'll make. This even happens at, like, the highest of ratings. I mean, like, I fought, like, a lot of different players and hunters that just, like, they'll jump around in the middle of the map like this. right? And they'll just be doing like the most damage ever, you know, have the most pressure, and then all of a sudden the enemy team will reverse the pressure, and the hunter will have nowhere to run, so they can't like stop the pressure from basically overrunning them. But if you're at a pillar at some kind of line of sight consistently, like this, as opposed to let's say I'm at line of sight here, right? I'm going in and out, and like the enemy, this enemy right here, can't hit me back because I'm like doing my damage and I'm running. And I'm doing my damage and I'm running again. And then like I'm doing the thing I talked about earlier. I'm rapid firing and I'm doing it behind a pillar like this. Now, like, as long as you're doing that throughout the game, as long as the two biggest things in PvP for Hunter, and I think this would go for any class, is having great positioning and doing as much damage as you can. All of the other stuff would just come naturally. All of the like the crowd control and everything, you could like work on that, but like if you have amazing positioning and you're doing damage, like really solid damage throughout the game, you're already putting yourself at such an advantage to where if you're fucking up the like super clutch things like crowd controlling trinkets and doing stuff like that, it's not as big of a deal because you're doing the basics well. That's something that's very huge. So, like you should always be aware of that. Always have amazing positioning and always be doing good damage because that'll put you ahead in the game to the point where you're allowed to make mistakes. So, pets this expansion don't really have much of a difference for Marksman. I would say you want to start every single game without a pet. The reason why is because when you don't have a pet summoned, you get a spell or a buff called Lone Wolf, and this one increases damage you deal by 10%. So you want this in the beginning of every single match because you start every single match stealth like this, so you're not going to get hit anyway. And then you're going to want your burst, your opener, your double tap opener, which is this. You want your double tap opener to hit hard, right? So you want it to do 10% more damage. So I would start with no pet. The only time you call your pet throughout the game is if you need either Master's Call, which is freedom, which keeps you immune to slows, right? This will make you immune to slows and remove slows and roots. If you want Roar of Sacrifice, which is the PvP talent I was talking about earlier, that'll make it to where you can't be critically striked. You want to keep somebody in combat or hit them for some reason, right? But you can't get to them, then you would summon your pet out. Or if you want to apply a Mortal Strike debuff, which decreases healing done to the target. If you want any four of those things, those would be the only times you call your pet out. Because if not, then you just lose 10% of your damage. So like you have to choose at what point in the middle of the game you want to summon your pet. Because unlike outside of arena, once you're in arena, you can't dismiss your pet. You can't just do this. So yeah. I would recommend having a Mortal Strike pet. That is a pet that has a spell that can decrease healing. And you switch between Cunning and Ferocity. Cunning will give Freedom, or Master's Call, whatever you want to call it, which will make you immune to slows. And then Ferocity will give you Leech, which makes your spells do healing, depending on how much damage you do. If you want info on pets, I would go on Petopia. That website will show you every single spell every pet in the game has. I think that's it for the basics. I know it sounds like a lot, but like if you have any questions, like I said at the beginning of this video, I would follow my Twitter, Jellybeans TV. Subscribe to my YouTube. You can comment on my YouTube videos. You can ask questions. I also stream on Twitch at twitch.tv/jellybeans. I'm always down to answer questions. Basically, every single time, if I don't respond back right away, I usually get like pretty distracted or sidetracked. Just give me a bit. I'll respond as soon as I can. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll come out with a lot more videos too. I'm gonna start releasing a lot of videos on like how to do certain things. I mean, I get a lot of questions like how to disengage and questions like that. So I'm gonna start releasing a lot more videos. But other than that, I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day, and thank you for watching my video. Subscribe to my YouTube at the bottom if you guys don't mind. It will help out a lot. And yeah, I hope you guys have a good one. Thanks for watching, and have fun in Shadowlands, dudes.